Tectone made another video called How the Genshin Community Keeps Ruining Itself, Victim Blaming, and Toxicity. Let's see their viewpoint. I have a lot to say about this shit, but yeah, this is a time in the Genshin period where we won. All of the bad eggs are gone. All of them have been dealt with, and usually it's by myself who executed them. And we had the opportunity to have a very love and peace and, you know, happiness arc, but instead the children are still fighting. And I don't know why they're still fighting, but they are. But let's see what Glaive has to say.
Honestly, at this point, it's a tale as old as time. But this time, it involves Marco Meatball getting insane amount of hate from the Hoyoverse community. And yet again, an out-of-touch tweet from Mr. Pokey that shook everyone. We've got a lot to...
I would like to say, guys, I made a fucking 2-hour rant on stream today how I am no longer defending Saint Tontas or Mr. Pokey. They can do their own thing. It's too much work. It is. It's too much work. The kids are out of control. It's not my job to take care of them. So, yeah. I mean, Mr. Pokey be rage baiting. I can no longer be, I can no longer give him any more excuses. So, don't care. Not my issue. Let's talk about it.
Unpack here, so let's get in there piece by piece and figure out what went wrong, why this is blowing up, and most importantly, what it says about the gacha community as a whole. So
let me tell you what it says. So a lot of content creators saw a spike in viewership that happens when they cause issues or be dumbasses, but what they're not going to realize is the dramatic fall off that they're going to experience because it's a very mentally taxing position to be in. And the other problem is when all of the problems that you're bringing up are ones that you yourself have created versus me talking about an issue that actually needs to be addressed. It's just mindless tedium and it's just boring brain rot, anger, and rage baiting non-fucking stop. It is cool short term, but long term it's going to cause a lot of damages and it's simply just not worth it.
Marco Meatball drops this video on Wuthering Waves, right?
Oh my god, they referenced Queen of the Night!
And honestly, it's a phenomenal...
Yeah, what a piece of shit! What? So Wuthering Waves is taking inspiration from Queen of the Night? Does that mean that you don't like Genshin Impact? What? How the fuck did Marco say that? He deserved the death threats. I'm just him. Bro, Mr. Pokey, what are you saying? Literally, what are you saying?
Phenomenal review. He dives into the game's rocky start, but then he balances it out by talking about how the 2.0 update turned things around drastically.
I think this is a solid game and a genuinely good time. The course correction in 7 months since 1.0 is monumental and should be praised and praised loudly.
Good criticism.
Call that shit enviosity.
Solid praise, and you're probably thinking, cool, a level-headed review in the gacha space. I love to see it.
Yep. Yeah, I think that was one of the best, if not the best review of a game or a version of a game that I've ever seen. And kudos to Marco for making something that fantastic. Wow. What a great way to describe his enjoyment of a wonderful update that he enjoyed.
But wait,
Yeah, I'll be real, man. I'm kind of enjoying 2025 Tectone, man. This whole era of peace, this whole Tortofine farmland saga arc has been quite good, man. I'll be real. All the demons that he's been putting to rest and all this character development he's been having, all this peace he's been bringing, I'll be real, man. Starting to root for the guys. Tectone is slowly becoming my favorite content creator. I'll be real. I used to hate the guy, but the more I watch him, the more that I realized that he was just misunderstood. Yeah, that's why I just realized Tectone isn't a content creator. He's more of an idea. He's a state of mind. I am Tectone. We are Tectone. Hail Tectone.
more, and by more I mean drama, because this is the gacha community we're talking about, and where there's gacha, there is always an intellectually deficient argument being made. So here's the thing, Marco used a thumbnail with Kafka from Honkai Star Rail and Hu Tao from Genshin Impact. Yep. And if you spent 5 minutes in the Hoyoverse community, you already know where this is going. Cue the Hoyo shells! These are the fans who defend anything Hoyoverse does with the intensity of a Wuthering Waves hologram boss fight. They took one look at the thumbnail and went whining like their moms dropped them as a child. And instead of—
Bro, the thumbnail wasn't even bad, and I really wish he showed it, because it was like the least provocative, least incendiary thumbnail I've ever seen. It was literally just Carlotta ulting, Kafka ulting, and then Hu Tao making a silly face. That's it. That's all it was. It wasn't even that bad. It wasn't bad at all.
just leaving a comment like, hey, maybe don't compare
Well, I don't know about that. Oh, did the thumbnail hurt your feelings? Oh, shut up, bro. That thumbnail was fine.
these games. They decided to take it nuclear because Twitter's free, and apparently so is their schizo raging tendencies. The backlash wasn't just your typical angry comment section kind of vibe.
But yeah, I'm gonna just pull up the thumbnail again, bro. It was not bad. Oh my God, it was changed. It wasn't even bad, bro. You can go watch my YouTube channel. It's on there, man. That thumbnail was not bad. I will die on that hill, bro. If you got upset by that shit, you a bitch.
We're talking full-on cyberbullying. Marco got flooded with so much hate and even threats on Twitter that he just peaced out entirely, deactivating his account.
Mr.
And
Pokey
honestly, I get it. Nobody signs up for that level of bullshit over a thumbnail. But hey, this is the gacha space we're talking about. Logic takes a backseat.
Here you go. Bro, are we really gonna act like this thumbnail was an attempt to ruin people's feelings on the game? It's literally a big wave, Hu Tao making a funny face, Kafka alting, and Carlotta looking smug. Yeah, but Hu Tao's making a silly face. God, shut the fuck up, bro. Grow up, man. It was a toxic thumbnail, not gonna lie. I mean this genuinely, bro. If you're that much of a pussy, I do not want you in my chat. Straight up. If you're that sensitive, if you're that much of a bitch, go watch somebody else. Grow up. Legit. And if you're below 18, you should not be in my chat regardless. I got this shit age gated. I got my Discord age gated. I got my Twitter being sure to mark that shit as mature. If I could do the same thing to YouTube, I would. Anybody who said that shit's toxic is wrong. And the only reason why Marco said it was toxic is he got bullied into that position to say some shit he didn't mean just to quell the hate. And you know that shit's the truth. That thumbnail was fine.
And idiocy takes the wheel.
I think what Mr. Pokey said is correct, but not, God damn, the thumbnail was right fucking here, fuck, about this situation. The problem is, contextually, it's completely missed the mark. It's a misfire. It borderline reads as a misclick.
So here comes Mr. Pokey. After the backlash Marco Meatball got, Pokey decides to chime in with a tweet. And oh boy, it's another Pokey take. Let me break it down for you. First, he starts off strong. Cyberbullying is pathetic. These people simply have nothing going for them IRL. And we're like, yes, Pokey, correct. You're on the right track. But then he keeps on going. And that is the mistake that he keeps on doing. He keeps going with his takes. So next, he drops the mic. Maybe don't enter the kitchen if the fire is too hot to handle. Okay, hold up. Did we just take a hard left into victim blaming territory? Because it kind of feels that we did. You called it.
And the other problem is, and it just screams hypocrisy because Mr. Pokey just quit 5.3 Genshin and Wuthering Waves because the community was too much bullying him. And so it's just like, bro, who are you to say that? That's why it just made no fucking sense. It reads as like somebody who really was trying to be him, but doesn't realize that the same emotional turmoil that Marco was experiencing, Mr. Pokey experienced a month ago, and you think that he would have been like, yeah, I understand what struggles you're going through, rather than get out the kitchen, little pup. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it just makes no sense coming from him.
I'm a pussy. You might as well said it in the tweet. That is insane, Pokey. And then for the encore, he picked.
Now, I'm a guy who frequently says that shit, but that's because I've been dealing with this shit for 6.5 fucking years. But me and Mr. Pokey, we are not the same type of person. We are very different. We've gone through a lot of different shit. And I'm sure we can all agree the shit that I've gone through, and you tell me a single gacha creator that's gone through worse. I have gone through worse shit than anybody. And I stream through it every single fucking time. There's not a slur in the book that I have not been called. There's not a hardship that I have not experienced, all live on Twitch the entire fucking time. People have attempted to ruin my life, come to my house, take photos of my front door, threaten to kill me if I play a game again. Finding me at cons, whispering slurs in my ears, going to my company, spreading misinformation, having motherfuckers pretend that I've committed crimes when I've done absolutely nothing wrong. And yet I go live and I'm smiling the whole fucking time. So I am definitely a guy who can say that shit. The problem is there's too many people pretending like they get it when they don't. And people really need to earn that type of credibility to say this shit like, we'll quit being a pussy, until they've gone through the same shit. It's like, I understand where you're coming from, but like, you ain't the guy to say it.
Up again the mic, you know, and then he dropped it again. Hoyo shills or Kuro bots aren't a new thing, and this thumbnail will attract them, which, yeah, we know Hoyo shills can be a little bit intense, and Kuro bots, well, they're great. Kuro bots are great. But honestly, this sounds more like, what did you expect? Than, wow, this behavior is unacceptable. Like, dude, pick a lane. Now, naturally, this tweet sparked some serious discussion, and by discussion, I mean Twitter exploded. The main issue is that kitchen line. People were quick to call Pokey out for victim blaming, saying he wasn't holding the cyber police accountable. Now, here's the thing. When you say maybe don't enter the kitchen when your fire is too hot, you're basically saying, well, did you walk into the kitchen knowing it was on fire? Like, okay, so it's not helping. That's not calling out the police. That's like putting part of the blame on Marco for daring to use a thumbnail like that.
It's also, once again, a completely fine thumbnail, and the video itself, the contents of that video were more than fair. And the thing that really frustrates me is I feel like all this could have been avoided if Mr. Pokey just watched the original video, which he didn't before making that type of inflammatory statement, which was just like a insane misplay.
And no, let's not forget the Hoyo shills aren't new comment. Yeah, we know they're not new, Pokey. We've all been here long enough to see the same cycle play out, but just because something's
yeah, just because they're criminals doesn't mean you excuse their behavior. Just because they've been doing it for years doesn't mean you excuse their behavior. It's say, yeah, that shit sucks, but just next time, maybe just don't do this, rather than saying, oh, man, what do you expect, brother? It's like, come on, man. Not everybody is aware of the intricacies of how horrible they are, and if they are still like that, especially when they're not frequenters of gacha content, of which Marco Meatball is not.
Predictable doesn't make it okay. That's like saying, well, you know you'd get wet if you stood in the rain. Well, sure, but maybe I was hoping for an umbrella from you, you know, or basic human decency. Maybe you can show a little bit of empathy for someone that has been getting nothing but hate for days, Pokey.
But people...
Yeah, it's just like the type of people who are like, you know, there's a big hole in this street, and the dude fell in it yesterday, and he goes into the street and he falls into it again, and sure, you could point at him and laugh at him and say, oh, bro, you're so retarded falling into the same hole twice, or you could just reach your hand out, pick him up, and just say, hey, man, maybe we should start being careful. You know what I mean? Like, I understand it. Once again, I get where he's coming from. But one, it's just kind of hypocritical because he went through the exact same shit like a month ago. And, you know, it got to him pretty fucking bad. I mean, he's been crashing on Twitter ever since. And, yeah, just like, it's just kind of unnecessary.
People shit on you for anything. They shit on you if you do a pog face. They shit on you if your face is even in the fucking picture. But I want to remind you that this is a nothing. It's a thumbnail.
Yeah.
And every person on YouTube does it. Look, thumbs down, question mark. You know, I'm just...
Moodang! Wait, bring back Moodang! Look at that! Look at that! It's little Moodang!
You know, I'm just sort of tired of having this like back and forth, which is why I deleted X. Because I'm tired of it. I open the app every time, and every time it's fucking... It's just bullshit. It's just angry people.
But let's talk about the big V word about Mr. Pokey. Virginity. Just kidding. Victim blaming. For anyone unfamiliar, victim blaming is basically when you go, oh yeah, that was bad, but like maybe you shouldn't have done XYZ. Now in Mr. Pokey's tweet, that's exactly where the problem starts. His infamous kitchen comment. Maybe
the other problem is with victim blaming is the reason why it's such an issue is because there's so many people who pretend to be victims of things that never occurred. It is also very hard to take victims seriously. Because there's so many people who lied and say, oh, dude, this is how it was, when later on you find out that's not how it was. And it's just it's a whole murky slope of just everybody trying to compete for who can be the most offended.
You don't enter the kitchen if the fire is too hot to handle, basically says, Marco, you knew what you were getting.
And as of late, there's way too many motherfuckers trying to act like they're hard when in reality, they're just as soft as everybody else. And maybe they should have more sympathy and empathy for those people who are also still in their feelings, which is absolutely fine.
Into by using that thumbnail. And sure, maybe Marco did know it might ruffle some feathers, but that doesn't mean it's his fault. People decided to go full keyboard warrior on him. When you say something like that, you're shifting the spotlight. Suddenly, it's not about the people harassing Marco, it's about whether Marco's thumbnail choices invited the harassment. And that's actually what it achieved. People actually start...
I'm sure we can all universally agree that that thumbnail did not warrant that amount of pushback. And I think that would be objective. I think everybody would agree with that. Whether you like the thumbnail or not, it affecting people that much is pathetic.
It's saying, Pokey's right, or Pokey...
And this community needs to grow up as a whole. Absolutely.
He's wrong on Marco's thumbnail being inflammatory. The victim blaming was successful. Instead of holding the bullies accountable, the focus is now on what Marco could have done differently. But in reality, it doesn't matter. Harassment isn't justified no matter how spicy a thumbnail looks. And when people call you out in the comments, you replied, yes, I ignited the hate for Marco, clown emoji. Well, Mr. Rookie, you probably didn't ignite the hate for Marco, but as a big content creator, you should acknowledge the power that you hold, man. I don't know if you're being humble or being delusional right now, but whatever you say kind of matters. And when you victim blame to this guy, it definitely switched the tides, whether you like to admit it or not.
So the thing is, and this has been happening a lot with Mr. Pokey, is he's been telling a lot of half-truths. And I think that's where a lot of confusion comes from, where when you read his sentences, you're like, Yeah, that's true, but they usually don't encapsulate the full story. Just the same thing with this tweet where it has a half-truth up top and then a confusing statement, confusing rhetoric on the bottom.
Now, here's where things get a little bit messier. Pokey's tweet starts strong with cyberbullying is pathetic.
Now, I will say I am very proud of Mr. Pokey due to the fact that I have been incredibly critical of his actions that he's been taking as of late, and I haven't been really pulling my punches as much as I used to with him. And he is absolutely taking it on the chin. He hasn't been upset at me or asked me to stop talking about it. He's been pretty receptive to it, which I think is good because I hope he understands that I'm only doing this out of a place of concern and what's better for himself as well as the community, that he just needs to understand that he's just kind of being a little bit of a silly Billy now, isn't he?
And you're like, okay, solid, this is going in the right direction. But then he immediately hits us with the kitchen comment, and suddenly the car swerves off the road. This is what I like to call acknowledging and then undermining. You acknowledged the problem, yay, gold star. But then you immediately gave it a low taper fade by implying the victim had some role in causing it. Just because you recognize a problem doesn't mean you get a free pass to downplay it right after. It's like saying, hey, cyberbullying is terrible, but maybe don't make it so easy for them. Do you see the point there? It's like you're saying, yeah, the bullies are bad, but you kind of set yourself up for it. The two don't cancel each other out, they just make you sound tone deaf. This is why look at the first sentence argument keeps falling flat.
Which sucks because it's like, that exact statement is very valid towards people like Doro or Bran, where all they do is they go and they shill and they go and they shill and then they say, why is everybody calling me a shill? Well, you set yourself up for it. However, Marco was literally just like, well, dude, look at the face Hu Tao's making. You asked for it. It's like, what are you talking about?
You can't just acknowledge something just to turn around and dismiss it in the same breath. It's like handing someone a bouquet of flowers and then slapping them with it. The acknowledgement doesn't hit as hard when you undermine it right after. It's not helpful to acknowledge an issue and then shift the conversation to what the victim should have done differently. Let's focus on the people doing the wrong thing, not the one just trying to live their life. But let's zoom out a bit and look at the reoccurring theme with Mr. Pokey. And that theme is, he's just kind of an asshole.
What's this? People hating on Mr. Pokey again for no reason? Orochi, you're a 27-month sub here, right? And I understand we can feed in this delusion, but you got to understand that people aren't hating on Mr. Pokey for no reason. They're hating on him because he is provoking people, and people are responding to his provocation. The problem is that when you're saying it's for no reason, it's like, well, let's just be truthful here, right? Because we don't want this type of behavior to spiral out of control. It's not something that we want. I know you want to support your favorite CCs, but it's okay, man. Sometimes I fuck up. Sometimes he fucks up. Just hold your content creators accountable and at least be able to talk it out, because I'm hoping nobody's saying that that's happening for no reason. It's a very intentional thing.
And I'm not saying this lightly, as genuinely his brand at this point, calling players greedy and stupid because they're upset about companies implementing predatory systems. Like, oh sure, it's totally the player's fault. It's
like, you can agree that this is something that's going to piss a lot of people off. I hope that you're not saying that it's just for no reason. Let's be reasonable here, guys. Okay, hope that makes sense.
Their fault that the
my bad. You're all good, man. But yeah, it's not for no reason. It is for a reason. It's a reason that he's invited, right? So yeah.
PNG they paid for got power crept a few patches after, dismissing valid frustrations with things like, don't participate in meta discussions when you're pulling with your dick. I mean, you could have just said stay informed, but hey, go off, I guess, my toxic king. And my personal favorite, like blaming parents for predatory gacha systems. Why didn't you teach Lil Timmy how to zero cycle? Wait, no, that's not what you said. What you said was, why didn't you beat Lil Timmy? These aren't just one-off comments. They're part of a pattern where he consistently chooses the most inflammatory and out of touch takes possible. And every time it just circles back into the same thing. He's being an asshole. But don't you remember how just 3 weeks ago he said he was moving on from drama and looking forward to a better 2025? What a beautiful sentiment, right? Like, wow, he is growing. But plot twist, on the same day, almost immediately, this guy posted one of the most chaotic AoE taunting tweets aimed at his own community. It's like,
it wasn't even an AoE taunt, it was an AoE provoke. It just sucks, man, because my community used to fucking love this guy, and now it's so divisive. It's so 50-50. You know what I mean? It's insane. Like, short term, it's going to get people to talk about him, but like, it has made so many people fucking hate this guy. It's insane. It is. And me being responsible for that was just a fucking nightmare. Like, having to take care of that shit behind the scenes just fucking sucked ass. But no, I just can't do it anymore, man.
Like saying you're starting a diet while eating a triple bacon cheeseburger. And now here he is, criticizing Marco for promoting tribalism with a spicy thumbnail, when let's be real, he does the exact same thing all the time. I mean, if we're handing out awards for instigating drama and stirring the pot, Mr. Pokey's got a shelf full of trophies. Man, he's the Ronaldo of doing that shit. So what do you actually want, Mr. Pokey? Are you done with the war, or are you just rebranding your attacks with new packaging? Because it feels like 1 minute you're telling people to rise above the nonsense, and the next, you are deep in the trenches throwing grenades.
The thing that really sucks is, once again, it does remind me a lot of what I used to do. But the thing is that when I would cause issues or make it a point to make an example of other content creators, it's because they needed to be corrected. But some of this shit just feels like random shade for no fucking reason, and it just sucks. It really does. It just sucks. You know what I mean? Like, every content creator that I've ever gone after was for a fucking reason. The problem is with Mr. Pokey's just going after the community and CCs for no fucking reason. So it's just odd, and I'm really hoping we move forward for this, but it is what it is. Great video, Glaive. Make sure to go subscribe to Glaive Keo, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.